Star Shatter, the exciting first book in a swashbuckling space opera series. Link in the description. Greetings, salutations, and other big words. My name's Ethan, my handle is Wrangler. Welcome to Frequency Studios. Well, it ain't an indie comic, but if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, then you knew that this was bound to happen. Today, we're covering the first half of Metroid issue number 1. This is Samus's origin story, going over her life from when tragedy struck her at the age of 3 and ending on her zero-mission showdown with Mother Brain in Metroid issue number 2, which I will also be covering in this 4-part video series. I don't think that these mangas were ever actually released in the US, but if we go over to MetroidDatabase.com, you'll find an assortment of free-to-read Metroid material. I put the link in the description, so this page being on your screen is only just a click away. But these two are the ones that we're here for. Metroid Issues 1 and 2 by Koji Tozawa and Kenji Ishikawa. This has a neat little effect too. I put the cursor right there, and the cover page lifts just a bit, teasing us with the bombastic battles that await us inside. When you click on it, it pops right up in your screen with the page turners to the sides, giving us that cool flip animation when you click them. Anyway, links to this, the games, and some of my favorite Metroid-focused YouTube channels are in the description. Now, let's get into Metroid. Right in the first panel, we see a gunship piloted by a bounty hunter. She had just wrapped up another mission and is headed for home. The ship lands and the bounty hunter steps out, her power suit shifting from matter to energy as it retreats into the wearer's body. This is Samus Aran, all 6'3" of her. Yeah, she's a tall broad, and she carries a lot of weight on her shoulders. Now that she's home and settling in for some rest, she can't help but think what it would be like to live as a normal human being. But she can't. Not with her responsibilities. Responsibilities that were put upon her by the unfortunate circumstances from long ago. Back in the year 2000, on the cosmic calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, many of the Milky Way civilizations, under the guidance of the Ch2, came together and established a federation. Nope, not that one, but pretty much the same idea. A caravan system was established to keep resources flowing among the planets and colonies, but the caravan system itself required a lot of fuel to keep it moving, which brings us to one particular star colony on a world that had been labeled K2L. I don't know if the planet ever had an actual name, or just its catalog number, but the folks here mine a mineral called the fluorotite, which is vital in powering the caravan ships. And it all hinges on this guy right here. This is Rodney Aran, Chief of Operations at the colony, and this lovely lady approaching him is his wife, Virginia. She's bringing him lunch because she knows that he can sometimes be too much of a workaholic to stop and take proper care of himself. Without her, Rodney probably would have pushed himself to the point of falling apart, and without Rodney, the colony falls apart. He's definitely driven and willing to put in the necessary work to achieve his dream of seeing the Milky Way thrive, but Virginia gently reminds him why he wants to see that. His family. And if he works himself to death, it doesn't do any good for either. So she gets him to promise that he'll stay healthy, not just for Virginia, but for their daughter, who is currently entering the woods at the colony's edge and yelling at a critter in a tree. This woodland rodent looks like they took a rabbit and a squirrel, put them through the teleportation pods from the fly, and then stashed them in a Pokeball. He apparently snagged the little girl's backpack and she wants it returned. This is Samus Aran, all what, 2'3" of her? She's trying to jump up and reach the branch where the Xenorabbit is perched, to no avail, when some other kids call out her name. They tell her that everyone's headed to the docks because a weird-looking ship came in, and they said that it's Ch2. Samus gets excited and wants to go meet the new visitors. And can we just take a second to appreciate how happy this kid looks? Moments like this are tragically few and far between for Samus, as life will be dealing her the roughest of hands in the very near future. At the docks, folks are getting a little animated by the Ch2's request as Rodney arrives to find out what all the fuss is about. A fluorotite is regulated by a galactic pact and is to be used only for caravan purposes, but the Ch2 have requested a very heavy amount yet are not forthcoming as to why. While they're having this conversation, Samus and the other kids come running into the area, talking to each other more than paying attention to their surroundings as they go, and the collision knocked the Chozo's hood back, and Samus looks up to see this guy looking back at her.
How can you look like a chicken?
I'm a fowl, not a chicken.
Not having met a Chozo before, Samus was taken aback by the very different face. The Chozo, recognizing her shock, just gave her a warm smile and said, "There's nothing to fear. We look different, but inside, we have the same heart as you do, so be at ease." His friendly demeanor did indeed put Samus at ease as they made introductions. His name is Old Bird, but tells Samus that she could call him MAJI-CHAN and he would like to be friends. So she says that her name is Samus. Yes, they could be friends. She could use a friend's help, grabs Old Bird's hand and starts running back towards the woods. Bird's partner, Gray Voice, is left standing beside Rodney, both of them scratching their heads as Bird shouts out to Gray to continue the negotiations without him. A moment later, Old Bird and Samus are standing beneath the tree where the Xeno Bunny is still hanging out with Samus's backpack. She thought that Old Bird could fly, therefore reach the branch and get her bag back, but the Chozo species lost their wings long ago. Now Samus is back to square one. Old Bird mentions that the critter won't come to her if she keeps yelling at him, suggests trying to befriend the little guy instead, and says to start by giving him a name. After a moment's thought, Samus comes up with Pionchi. Since they both start laughing about this, it makes me think that a joke may have been lost in translation. Back at the docks, Rodney explains that he can't justify parting with a substantial amount of a floral type for an IOU, even if that IOU is from the Chozo. Not without good reason. The Chozo have some serious clout, but Rodney still has his superiors and needs something to work with if he were to make this arrangement for them. Unfortunately, other than to convey the great importance of their project, Gray can't disclose any details.
That's classified.
Which brings the negotiations to an impasse as Samus and Old Bird return. And Samus is holding Pionchi.
I will hug him and pet him and squeeze him and pat him and pet him and...
You are hurting me.
The Chozo apologize for having taken their time and politely say goodbye. Samus is bummed that they're leaving already and asks Old Bird to come back and visit soon. As they leave K2L's orbit, we learn from their conversation that they figured they wouldn't be getting the floral type, but they had to try. They currently don't have enough energy for their project without it, yet they need to speed up the process. The Chozo have a colony on a planet cataloged as SR-388, and it's here that they encountered a parasite that terrified even them. Dubbing it the X-Parasite, this gelatinous creature slaps itself onto its prey, sinking in through the pores or any other form of opening in the body, and eats it from the inside out in a matter of seconds. If that wasn't horrifying enough, the X then morphs into what it had just consumed, taking on any memories or abilities it had. This parasite, if it ever gets off the planet, could destroy civilizations across the galaxy, and the Federation does not know about it. The Chozo are hoping to eliminate the strain before it's discovered by anybody else. Because even though the Chozo like and trust humans, they also realize that we humans just can't leave shit alone and will inevitably turn it into another horribly gone wrong science experiment. They're probably right. So, in their infinite wisdom, they're solving the problem with a bound-to-be horribly gone wrong science experiment of their own. Another ship observes them leaving the system, and the captain wonders why the Chozo were so far out of the way. Measuring the trajectory, the space pirates calculated from which planet they likely left and began scans. Scans that yield interesting results. A floraltite, and lots of it. This narcissistic pirate captain is Ridley, and he is bad news. One of his nicknames is the Cunning God of Death, and it's not an exaggeration. He's also been called the Space Dragon, Space Pterodactyl, Lizard, and I get why. His silhouette is much like that of a gargoyle's, but he, like the Chozo, is of an avian species. And yeah, we already know where he's going. With a fleet. Down on the surface, Rodney's doing his best administrative juggling act when communications dropped, disrupting everything. He runs over to one of the operators who is confused by all the strange readings and looked to see for himself. And see, he did. He recognized what was happening and called out for the alarms. The space pirates are coming. Out in the woods, Samus is happily playing with Pionchi when she sees a blast cloud billow from the colony, then feels a shockwave accompanied by a shuddering boom. The fleet descends on the colony as Ridley reminds them to take care with their aim. A direct hit on the Afluorotype will result in a far bigger boom than what they just unleashed. All they want is the Afluorotype, so Ridley gleefully gives them the no prisoners order and tells them to enjoy. Now these guys are called Deebeegeeks, just not yet. We'll see the reason why in part 3, but the thing to understand about this species is that they're kind of a hive mind. On their own, they all revert to a feral state, very animalistic, but they naturally gravitate toward a strong sentient leader, and in doing so, become more coherent based on their leader's own capacity, and Ridley is their boss. Samus comes running back to the edge of the establishment, and guess who she finds standing there? He gives the 3-year-old a sideways glance as one of the Deebeegeeks steps to him and addresses him as Lord Ridley before giving a quick report. Samus nervously says, "Mr. Ridley, you're not so scary. Even though we look different, we can still be friends." But her olive branch is denied. The ever-psychotic Ridley gets ready to tear into the helpless child when Virginia comes rushing in, screaming for Samus, and then... Back at the warehouse docks, everybody's been slaughtered. Everybody except a single holdout. Rodney is still fighting back, but he's cornered. If the space pirates take the Afluorotype, it'll give them a huge boost in capabilities and they'll become an even greater menace than before. With no other options, Rodney calls out to wherever his wife and daughter may be, saying "I love you" to them both, and then shoots the Afluorotype. A short time later, Old Bird and Grey Voice returned. They received a distress signal and knew that Federation assistance had a long way to travel before they could arrive. So the Ch2 came back to help, only to find burning rubble where a star colony had stood mere moments ago. They thought that no one had survived until they heard a whimper. Looking down the scorched path, they couldn't believe their eyes as they saw 2 figures stumbling out of the haze. Samus and Pionchi were still alive. This is Planet Zebes, cataloged as FS-176. Old Bird and Grey Voice's homeworld. They brought Samus here, but are now debating what to do with her. She has no family, no one else she knows, and nowhere else to go. But humans can't survive long in this world due to the stronger gravity, harsh environment, and atmosphere. Seriously? Atmosphere? Have they seen LA? Humans can handle atmosphere. A woman's voice is heard as a hovering drone lowers down closer to the others, startling Samus. The voice says that they don't have the resources for humans to survive on this planet. Samus would have to be confined to Brinstar and Criteria, but even then, she'll probably die within a few days. Samus is about ready to freak out over this drone, but Old Bird lets her know that it won't harm her. It's the computer interface that oversees this planet. The computer interface that oversees the planet. Yep, they built a biomechanical organism with sentience and free will and put it in charge of their entire world, because that never goes wrong. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, they do what anyone else would have done. Genetic manipulation! The Ch2 here on planet Zebes are members of the Thoha tribe. They also have a settlement on planet SR-388, where they share space in cooperation with the Ch2 of the Malkin tribe. Malkin are the warriors of the Ch2, and the head of this tribe, along with one member of the Thoha, donated their DNA to be spliced into Samus, allowing her body to adapt to the new environment, as well as enhancing her strength, agility, and speed. And since there was a severe lack of other kids to play with, she spent the next 11 years training. Here she is in her Ch2 designed power suit. The thing about Thoha technology is that it's so much more than just gadgets and gears. Their tech is part mechanical, part biological, and part spiritual. Samus's power suit is literally part of her body. It's formed from her very DNA and she can summon it at will. In fact, it pretty much runs off her willpower. The power suit is within her at all times. When she summons it, energy is expelled from her body and compresses itself into matter in the form of her suit. If her concentration is broken or she loses consciousness, it'll revert back to its energy state and phase back inside Samus. Although since Samus's suit is part of her, then if she gets sick, the suit can go a little wonky too. Like in Metroid Fusion where she passed out but the suit remained, giving the doctors that were trying to save her life another hurdle to jump. Fun times. With this latest round of practice ending, Samus drops and sits on the ground, dismissing her suit as she takes a breather. Mother Brain's drone drops down in front of her to give her a reminder that the suit reacts to your thoughts, but it doesn't think for you. Cranky, Samus snaps at Mother, prompting Grey Voice to call her over. Grey has been consistently sterner with Samus than Old Bird. He now calls her out for not putting her heart into what she's doing, and when Samus goes to respond, Grey cuts off her expected retort with a wave of his hand and says, listen, yes, the Milky Way is doing better right now, but violence and troubles are still running rampant and you should understand that better than anybody. Plus, she's now one of the Ch2, which means she is a protector of the galaxy as well, and Grey wants to see her step up her progress. Samus says she understands all that, but that's where she loses the words to express what's going on inside. So she turns to leave. Grey says that your training isn't over yet, to which Samus responds by stomping all the remaining targets on her way out. Old Bird is like, well, she's definitely gotten stronger. A while later in Crateria, Samus and Pioncha are sitting at a cliffside looking out over a valley. Hold on a second. Samus needed a genetic tailoring job to live on this planet, but the wascally Xenowabbit is just fine? Are we going to need a scaling video? How powerful is Pionchi? A glow catches Samus's attention, and she looks to see large bioluminescent wings. A butterfly, she exclaims. She had not seen these creatures before, and as she watches them with wonder, Old Bird begins to explain what they are while approaching. They're called ionophoria, and they absorb moisture, ionize it, and use the energy to fly. Samus, still grumpy, huffs, can't you just say they're pretty? After a moment, she apologizes for running out on her lesson, tells him that she understands her role as protector of the galaxy, but there's some kind of uneasiness rising in her gut that she just can't explain. After a bit, Old Bird leaves Samus to her thoughts, and as she looks around, she wonders where all the ionophoria went. She began walking to an area she hadn't been before, and finds the Phoria hovering over a field of flowers, attracted to the nectar. Samus gets an idea, runs home, and comes back carrying 2 bags filled with containers of juice, using them to attract the Phoria. Back at Turian, Old Bird, along with some others, are receiving an update on the project at SR388 from Mother Brain. She says that even though Project Metroid is progressing, it's only at an average rate, which falls horribly short of their timeline. Old Bird asks if their children can still develop as they'd hoped at this rate, which confuses Mother Brain. She asks, what do you mean, children? Bird explains that he's referring to Samus and the Metroids, and Mother Brain is like, is that so? On the surface, Samus returns hauling 2 bags of those gorgeous flowers and sees Grey Voice. Running up to him, she's all excited to show him what he found. He's like, whoa, those are badger clovers. Where did you get those? Samus tells him, and he immediately orders the robots to go torch the place. Samus is understandably horrified by this and screams, what are you doing? But Grey explains that these flowers are an invasive species from another planet and very poisonous. With the plants wiped out, this leaves them with the question of how they got here. Mother Brain's drones go out scanning the area, finding the source. Bodies of space pirates from a previous attack are found, which really shakes Samus. Space pirates came here? Grey says yes, but only once. He turns his attention back to the situation at hand, wondering how the flowers ended up so far from the bodies. Mother Brain's drone approaches, telling him that the latest scans found traces of the seeds on the Phoria butterflies. They're the couriers. Grey orders the robots to eliminate the Phoria as well as the badger clovers, and Samus freaks, screaming at him to stop this. I get it, Samus. I feel the same way whenever I set up mouse traps. I don't want to hurt the cute fuzzy little critters, but when I find mouse turds in my kitchen drawers... But as the robots turn toward the butterflies, the Phoria deploy weapons that they got from the space pirate bodies. The biology in Metroid can be a little weird sometimes. The Phoria open fire on Grey Voice, but before the rounds could reach him, Samus bursts into movement with superhuman speed, grabbing Grey and leaping out of the line of fire as Old Bird arrives. He sees Samus in mid-leap, bringing Grey to safety. She drops him off and darts back toward the Phoria, saying, I'll stop them. She begins unleashing power beam shots in rapid succession, precisely hitting the weapons and knocking them loose from the butterflies. With her pinpoint accuracy, she disarms all of them in short order. She says, it's okay. No one will hurt you now. But as soon as she stepped away from them...
Spaceballs the flamethrower!
The robots state that cleanup is complete, and one of them says, thank you for your cooperation, Samus. Her blood went past boiling to straight up steam, and she responded, you know, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've wanted to do that in the games. Those things are so annoying. Anyway, it didn't sit well with Samus. A while later, Old Bird finds her sitting by herself, still upset by the earlier events. Looking at her, he finds himself surprised by how fast time has gone by and how much she's grown. He's here to discuss Samus's future, but he begins with a quick preamble about the Ch2 future. The Ch2 are a long-lived and advanced species, but the truth is, their species is coming to an end. Keep in mind that all the Ch2 we've seen are all male and elderly. There aren't any ladies or young ones left that they know of, except Samus. She's young and becoming independent. She's become much stronger and has honed her skills. Being cooped up on Zebes is no longer doing her any good. And Old Bird says that it's time for her to go out into the galaxy, meet other people, and take her place as its protector. Samus looks at the sky with what must be a mix of excitement and anxiety while she contemplates the responsibility of her role as legacy of the Ch2 and the true protector of the galaxy. This is planet Dibon, capital of the Milky Way, where the congressmen of the Galactic Federation are discussing a major problem. They're being shown footage of space pirates slaughtering civilizations and cultures. They've leveled over 200 countries across various planets, and something must be done. You see, the Galactic Federation was founded in peacetime and never built a large military. The Federation police are the ones trying to deal with the pirates, and they've been increasingly overwhelmed. So Chairman Vogel says that they must reorganize the galactic resources into a military force. He goes on to elaborate about his ideas, to which Chairman Keaton objects, and they get into a debate. Pretty much, they agree on what they want to accomplish, but disagree on how to go about doing it. A short time later, Chairman Keaton is speaking with a couple fellas we know, Old Bird and Grey Voice. It seems that in Samus's absence, Pionchi's taken quite a shine to Old Bird. Keaton is still sore from the argument earlier, so Old Bird advises him that the true terror comes when we can no longer understand one another's hearts. At a time like this, leadership must unite because, as the saying goes, a house divided against itself cannot stand. The Ch2 turn to leave and Keaton's like, "Where are you guys going?" To which Bird replies, "Even the old folks are busy nowadays." They're feeling the pressure of the clock more than ever now. Somehow, they managed to speed up the timeline of their project, but things are close. They don't have many years left in them, and Old Bird considers this to be his final service to the galaxy. On another planet called Jagrad, the space pirates have been up to their usual crap. Well, almost. What's different this time is that they didn't kill everybody. Yet. The pirates are using the locals as slave labor to build whatever it is you want to call that tacky looking thing. But a short distance away, an elfin man named Kreet is watching, and he's not alone. With him are a simian man named Mauk and our favorite human Ch2 hybrid, Samus, who is now a Galactic Federation police officer. They're staking out the area, but their orders are to observe and report, not to engage. While watching, more pirates arrive with a group of children as their prisoners. One of the pirates shouts, "Fresh workers!" The kids are marched up to where there are a couple of poles and are instructed to walk between them. When they do, the sensors measure their height, and if one is too short to be of use, then a laser beam forms between the two poles, with fatal results. Samus and the others are furious seeing this, but then the beam must have malfunctioned because a kid somehow slips through. The captain shouts to the others that she is unfit for duty and says, "Dispatch her!" The pirates chase the kid down, quickly cornering her. One of them straight up tells the kid that this isn't even about whether they could use her or not. This is just fun for them. The child is horrified as the pirates line up to take aim, while the adult slaves nearby cry, scream, and beg them not to do this. The space pirates fire, but their shots don't find the vulnerable skin of a helpless child. They instead deflect off a Ch2 power suit as Samus shields the girl with herself. As the dust clears, Samus says, "Federation police, you're under arrest." Some of them back right off, but the leader shouts not to be fools. "She's by herself. Just kill her." Wrong answer. She unloads with her arm cannon while jumping, twisting, and dodging the return fire, holding on to the little girl as she went. The second Samus saw her chance, she leaped over to where the adults were and handed the kid off to them, told them to all go hide, and then turned back to deal with the oncoming pirates. Mauk joins the fray, and he's a big dude. He took some pirates by surprise, grabbed them, and started tossing them around like rag dolls. Creech joins in as well, unleashing whips of energy from his fingers, wrecking another group of pirates. It's probably considered beyond rude to point on his homeworld. The group's leader is beside himself. He can't believe that they were all taken down by just 3 people. And by the way, this is what, I think a few years after she left Zebes or something like that? So she's probably almost at her full adult height right now, which is 6'3", just to give you an idea of how big Mauk is. Samus walks right up to the captain and shoves her arm cannon in his face and asks, "So what happens if they aren't tall enough? They get dispatched, was it?" The captain actually has the nerve to beg for mercy, but Samus doesn't remember mercy when the space pirates descended upon her childhood home. In fact, she can't remember much of the details, but she remembers how she felt. "Mercy?" she asks as she charges up her beam. Creech and Mauk panic, thinking that Samus was really about to straight up murder him, and she probably would have, but then she sees the little girl she rescued, melting down in tears. Seeing her makes Samus think better of it. The people have seen enough death and destruction, so she lowers her arm and says, "You're under arrest." More police soon arrive, including Chief Hardy, no relation to Drake Hardy, and he's pissed. They disobeyed direct orders by engaging, and he's threatening them with all sorts of nasty punishments that will never be enough to see him satisfied after their antics. But in the middle of this very tropey 80s action cop movie tongue lashing, the little girl comes up to them and addresses Samus. "Nice lady?" Samus looks to the child, who says, "Thank you for saving me." Samus picks her up and gives her a hug while thinking about how she almost crossed the line and says, "You were the one who saved me." The Chozo had entrusted her with great power, and she needs to keep her head if she's going to use it wisely and be a true protector of the galaxy. The girl tells Samus that her name is Damara, and they begin talking. Meanwhile, someone from the Federation Army approaches Chief Hardy saying, "The entire battleship prepared to fight space pirates has gone to waste." Hardy looks up to see the eyes of General Adam Malkovich staring back. The chief is sweating things now because the army is taking over. I'm going to put the break here and come back and finish this up in part 2. Part 3 will cover the first half of the second issue, and then we'll conclude the series in part 4. Things are getting ready to boil over with the space pirates in a conflict that will take Samus back to some familiar grounds in more ways than one. So get ready, the next video should be dropping soon. If you enjoyed this presentation, hit the like, and if you didn't, I appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you next mission, and God bless.